AA Best Bail Bonds. Big game coverage live from Las Vegas. Powered by Southern Recipe Small Batch Pork Rinds, Synergenics, and 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star.
It is the Blitz here on 94.1 at San Antonio Sports Star. He's Joe Reinagle. I'm Jason Minix. Our AA Best Bail Bonds Radio Row coverage in Las Vegas continues. Brought to you by Southern Recipe Small Batch Pork Rinds and Synergenics. Go to fixmylowt.com to book your appointment there. Now joined by Fox broadcaster Chris Meyers. Chris, always fun catching up with you on Radio Row. I'm curious. We just played a clip earlier from Cowboys running back Tony Pollard. Earlier today, dude is on Pat McAfee's show, and they asked him about Dan Quinn leaving, and he had no idea.
No idea.
No idea.
Where has he been?
That was the question we had. He said he got rid of Instagram.
Well, let me just say, after the way the Cowboys played in the last playoff game, they should go into hiding for a while. Okay, so he's probably under a rock somewhere, and hopefully he's come out now to be aware. That is shocking, especially even if you were trying to avoid that news. That's big news. Maybe that tells you something, not to pick on the Cowboys, about where the connection is with this team and how aware players are of what's going on.
Well, you know, Chris, you can pick on the Cowboys as much as you want to. It's allowed here on this program.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for the record, he's a hater.
Oh.
Well, you know how that is.
I'm a Jerry Jones fan, by the way. I go way back with him. I have roots, so there's a soft spot there.
There
but
you go.
They do
I'm a
disappoint.
truth teller, Chris.
Okay.
That's all it is. There's a difference. And I love Jerry Jones, too, by the way. He's fantastic. But, you mentioned it, and obviously Cowboy fans very upset. It's been a long time since they've made an NFC championship round, much less a Super Bowl. And that Green Bay game was just a disaster. What'd you think about that?
Well, I'll tell you what, and it seems like it happens every year no matter what the talent. And I've been on the sidelines for Fox covering the broadcast many times, going back when Aaron Rodgers threw the sideline pass, the late field goal. That was another opportunity when they were at home. I was there at Lambeau, and I think that, the
Des caught it?
Yeah, and I think he caught it. But anyway, they got a bad break there. Still had a chance to win the game. So anyway, but around that stuff in the play. But I'll tell you a couple of, and I won't give their names, but some prominent Cowboys who've had success through the years have later said that we have an issue that during the week as the games get bigger, we hear all the hype, as the America's team, and it gets into our heads of the star, even the backup tackle and the backup corner, and guys are just not as focused for the big game. And it's still teams want to beat Dallas. I mean, that's part of their history, even though, as you said, they haven't won in a while. But they still have a reputation, the America's team, that bothers some players. Some coaches use that against them. Still, no excuse. So that I didn't see this one coming. First of all, I thought it was amazing that they were able to get the division. Okay, I thought the Eagles this year, they'll get the Cowboys will get into the playoffs, but the performance of that team, especially the defense, I just and I don't take anything away from Green Bay, had a good game plan, but there were just adjustments that could have been made. So even as just an observer of the NFL and not necessarily a fan of one team or another, I got to say I was shocked at that result, like many were.
Chris Meyers joining us here on Radio Row here on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star. And Chris, I hear that. We were all shocked. Is when you're talking to the people you're fortunate enough to get to talk to around the league, what is the perception of the Cowboys in big moments, specifically Dak Prescott?
Well, I think you can get off people say, the constant has been Jerry Jones, the owner. It starts at the top and the way the teams run. But he was there when they won the Super Bowl, so he has to hire the right guy. And that was my follow-up to what I was saying about I don't want to say the lack of preparation. I mean, they prepare, but I guess focus and devotion in those moments. And that's where I think that's the head coach. The head coach has to be, and there's different ways to do it. You can be the rah-rah in your face guy, you can be the mild-mannered guy, but you got to connect with your players or lock them out from whatever they have to be and lock them into because they're talented enough to go further than they've gone in most of these cases. So I'm not singling out Mike McCarthy or Dan Quinn. I'm just saying that maybe they're not. Remember, Jerry Jones went to Bill Parcells. I mean, I know that's been out there, but I could see if they fall short again miserably, I could see a deal. Jerry will tell tell you, deal with the devil, bring in Bill Belichick for 2 years, say, give me that Super Bowl, you can have whatever you want, because the clock is ticking. I mean, we're all getting a little older here. We might have to get Jerry some Synergetics to help get him through if this team doesn't turn around and win in the postseason. This is a golden opportunity for them. Before Parcells didn't have the quarterback. I mean, Dak Prescott, that's the next thing people are going to pick on. He's good enough to get them to a Super Bowl, at least win a championship game, I think. And I've been around him and people who, defenses and other quarterbacks who have said that as well. And he's finally got, some pretty good coaching. Mike McCarthy's a good coach of quarterbacks and a play caller to a certain degree. The head coach thing in Dallas, that's still, there's a big question mark, I think.
Yeah, lame duck situation for Mike McCarthy playing for his contract. And a lot of the talk has been that that is hampering their efforts to bring in a defensive coordinator. You got names like Mike Zimmer, Ron Rivera, and Rex Ryan, for goodness sake, coming out of the woodwork. Is there anything more cowboy than those names?
Boy, he is a hater. Boy,
I told you, Chris.
But I'm trying to solve things, and he's digging up a lot of.
Well, that's what he does.
No, but I would try to find it, and we just saw the move. Maybe I think it was Harbaugh hiring somebody, and who else? Green Bay brought in from college a young defensive coordinator. I would go more. Obviously, you want him experienced enough, and he's got to know NFL personnel. But at this point, given what you said there, and it's a good point, I would get that kind of guy. I don't know that those other guys, as accomplished as they are the right fit. And that way, you got a guy, even if he's a hot property, he's earning a career for himself. He might be your next head coach, or at least hang around if there is another coaching change.
When you think about hearing Rex Ryan has entered the chat, Mike Zimmer, who was in Dallas for a long time, tough, hard-nosed coach, which maybe a guy like Micah Parsons needs. Why is Mike Vrabel's name not being mentioned anywhere for any of these jobs?
Yeah, I don't know that he would take it, but I certainly and look, both of those guys. I mean, Zimmer could coach defense. He's been there in Dallas before, and he was a head coach. His defense is, at least until the end there, where he kind of lost touch with some of the players in Minnesota, were very good. I think that's a good example, and I think he's a guy. Again, how guys are paid with the end of their contract when they're let go, and do they want to go do? It's not only lame duck situation, but what happens with the money? What am I giving up versus sitting back and observing and going? He wants to be a head coach, Mike Vrabel, and I frankly thought he would get more of a shot than he did, just like Bill Belichick. I didn't think it was as automatic, but I think that is a candidate. That's the right kind of guy who is a hard-nosed guy, who's not quite, he's got that Patriot attitude, but we've seen those Patriot assistants not be successful as head coaches. Vrabel was probably, I guess Bill O'Brien won a playoff game in Houston, but he's really the only one remember, he beat the Patriots, Brady's last game as a Patriot, so he's probably one of the more successful coaches in that regard. I think that would be the best answer for the Cowboys if they're really going to put all their chips in the middle of the table here.
All right, Chris, I've got to ask you this because I saw a report about Mike Vrabel, and the source was that some NFL executives said, well, he's too big, he's intimidating. Do you buy that?
No, and I think they tried to dial it back, and this is the problem with everybody feels like social media. They throw something out and they have to comment on it, and so I do think the look of a head coach is important. It's become more and more, and by the look I mean, does he look like a guy that can lead men? Does he look like a CEO? Does he look confident? Can he speak and handle the press conference questions? That type of thing. And Vrabel he's got a little edge to him. I've sat in production meetings with him, did a game with him this year when he kind of knew things were going south and they wasn't happy, ownership and general manager, but he still put a great effort with his guys forward. He is a big guy. He's not really intimidating. I mean, he was intimidating as a player, but he's really not as a person. If you talk to him, he can be tough. He can be almost rude in a coaching kind of way, which I think sometimes you need. But yeah, I don't know. I saw the source of that, had some doubts, and then the more I looked into it, the more it was kind of a casual. Somebody might have said, hey, boy, he's an intimidating guy when you sit and talk to him, not because of his size. I find that hard. Believe me, if the guy could win, he could be 2 feet tall. He could be from the Wizard of Oz and the land of the Munchkins, and they would put him out there. The mayor of Munchkinland, if he could win.
Well, that works as a visit with Chris Meyers from Fox here on the Blitz 94.1 at San Antonio Sports Star. Now, you talk about sitting in production meetings. A look of a certain head coach, and can they be a leader of men? And then you look down in Miami. What's it like doing a production meeting with McDaniels?
Boy, he was even as an assistant coach. You almost thought like it did this, and I heard somebody describe him as a throwback beatnik surfer that wandered into coaching. And it's a great description. And he would, if you said that to him, he'd be flattered, right? Mike McDaniel. He's almost you watch Jim Harbaugh kind of go off when he answers things, right, and thinks about things. There's a little bit of that with Mike, but he's very profound. He knows offenses really well. I haven't seen enough of him connecting with players beyond his offensive staff, right? And as a head coach, that's his specialty with Tua and that offense in Miami. But I haven't seen enough of an overview. I mean, you watch Hard Knocks and you get a sense of things. He is very theatrical. Guys do respect him. They do respond. But in some tough, critical situations this year, I would have liked to have seen a little more, I hate to say mature, just a little more grown up in that area. That's probably it. Less beatnik, less surfer, more coach. But he's a very likable guy and he's very entertaining. Whether he's going to become a successful head coach, I don't know. We'll have to see. I was buying into it. I got to say, I was a little disappointed that I thought they'd win the division, and with Vic Fangio, I wonder what happened there. That's kind of a little dicey, and that would have been a good guy, by the way, to bring in. The Eagles snatched him up on defense as a coordinator.
I think it's funny, and in our business, Chris, as you know, a guy like McDaniels, he's good for us because he gives you a lot of fodder and a lot of funny stuff. Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers. I want to ask you about that because there was something that he said that I found fascinating. He said when he met his teammates, the Herberts and Keenan Allen, he was starstruck. I love that human type of, letting loose, if you will, and admitting that. What do you think?
Yeah, no, he was like that when I was around him with the 49ers. And by the way, he hit his whole Ted Lasso. He's using that as his coaching blueprint, which we all love the show and it's entertaining. And I think that tells you about his human element. I was at a production meeting with him when he was with the 49ers before a game, and we're talking about, he says, he would talk football with you, and then he'd go off and say something very human, like, boy, I had a long wait at the checkout line today at the 7-Eleven or something. I go, oh, okay, can we get back? Tell me more about. So he mentioned something like, oh, so you live in California? I said, yeah, I got. And he said somehow it came up where he was a fan of Tom Selleck. I don't know how he kind of said that. And I said, well, I ran into him. I said he's a neighbor that lives a couple of streets over. His sister lives there, and he's got a big ranch. I don't live in that fancy neighborhood. But he said, and then he was like, well, hey, and then we're doing the football, and then he says, hey, do you think you could get me Selleck's autograph? He goes, because let me tell you, because I was a big fan of James Garner, and I got a picture of him as what was the show he was on? That was he was the actor.
Oh, Selleck.
James Garner.
Oh, James Garner.
Yeah, I forget.
The Rockford Files.
There you go.
Yeah,
so he runs it.
The old guy would know that.
Yeah, I know that.
I'm sorry. No, and he was in The Great Escape. Garner was so great, but he runs it. He gets a picture of a James Garner thing, that autograph. He was a Raider fan, and Harbaugh was just so excited. But it shows you that kind of human element. So it's not surprising to me that he said something. Hey, he was in awe. He really does appreciate great football talent, just like his brother, that football family. But he's a unique guy. I think it's interesting, and he got out of college football just in time. He's probably the best when you talk about the best situation in terms of, because he has the quarterback, right, of all the new head coaches. That's already a star that they've kind of fouled up because of their coaching there, and with the Chargers in Los Angeles.
Visiting with Tom Selleck's neighbor, sort of. Chris Meyers here's on the Blitz.
I ran into him. My kids were picking out pumpkins one time, or something. He came over there with his family. So
did he come up to you and say, dude, are you Chris Meyers?
No, he didn't know.
What's it like to be on the sideline at the Super Bowl?
He did know who I was, though, which I was kind of flattered about.
Everybody knows who you are. And then you start talking, everybody recognizes that voice.
He's a big sports fan, Tom Selleck. Play baseball, as you know.
That is awesome. What are your thoughts on Sunday's game?
Well, I'm leaning 49ers, and I don't think anybody should be favored. This is a coin toss game. I do think, and I was on the sideline when the Chiefs won the game, their first Super Bowl with Andy Reid and Mahomes. They trailed halftime, 49ers, they come back, and then did the post-game interview, so I saw how they operated and how they adjusted. This team is more about defense. Of course, Mahomes is the best quarterback right now that's out there. Their defense is very adjustable. It's malleable. They'll shape it to whatever they need. Could give Brock Purdy some problems, but I think this 49er offense is better than the one that was in the Super Bowl the last time around with McCaffrey McCaffrey, and obviously Purdy, maybe just he's fit better than Garoppolo. They don't have to work around him. And I think the 49er defense is good enough, even though they've been run on a little bit. That's the thing to watch. Pacheco running against the 49ers because the last 2 playoff games, teams have run on him. But I'm leaning towards the 49ers.
And, of course, with a game like this, it's about knowing your numbers. And, Synergenics is one about, for you personally, knowing your numbers.
Well, he segues because he cares. That's
of
what
course.
you do, yes.
Yes.
Well, I would just say, and you mentioned it as we came into the segment, Synergenics, and think of it with low T, and it's more about energy than it is worrying about numbers, and they mentioned it. Just go to fixmylowt.com, fixmylowt.com, and Synergenics, they will check your testosterone. Once you get over 30, muscle mass, energy, things kind of go down a little, even if you try to do all the other things. In a quick check, within 20 minutes or so, they'll let you know what you need to do. It's covered by most health providers, insurance, and it is medically monitored to go through that. So if you have a lack of energy, whether it's your drive or you have battling a little depression, a little wear and tear, also even if you're feeling okay, you're in that range and the muscle mass is going to decrease. It's a little bit of a preventive type of thing to do that I think, and for women too at a certain age, but for men, once you get into your 30s, go to fixmylowt.com. Just get checked out on that. Synergenics is a name that you should be familiar with.
Fixmylowt.com is the website. Chris Meyers joining us here on the Blitz. Always fun catching up with you, man.
Yeah, thanks. Great conversation.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah.
Good luck to those Cowboys, by the way.
Thanks, yeah.